He's still alive. Get a medical capsule immediately.
Yes, sir. Right away.
The Clone Wars Season 7 has some of the best Star Wars that I have seen in years. The Siege of Mandalore has everything in it. You've got the return of Darth Maul with Ray Park, Order 66, a hallway sequence to rival that of Rogue One Darth Vader. It's basically everything that I could have wanted from the episodes. But did it erase the old 2003 show as I thought it might? Let's find out. Also, there's been some new media released since my last video, like Dooku Jedi Lost, so I'll have a look at that and see if that clears up anything from the previous video or confuses it, as well as some other things, so let's get started. As always, some timestamps in the description if you want to jump around the video, around the various topics, so go ahead.
I can sense the darkness within you. I will teach you the ways of the dark side, but you must prove yourself first.
Dooku Jedi Lost actually clears up an awful lot of the confusion around Ventress's backstory. As you've already seen from that clip, part of Ventress's flashback from the Clone Wars Season 3 was actually explained in Jedi Lost. In fact, the whole novel is Ventress proving herself first to Dooku. According to the author, in an interview on StarWars.com, the book is set before Attack of the Clones, in the time leading up to it, and it's actually Ventress's very first mission for Count Dooku, during which she ends up uncovering all of Dooku's past and how he ended up leaving the Jedi Order and reclaiming his title as Count over Serrano. And the lines from the Dark Disciple novel about Ventress's backstory are actually explained and expanded upon further in this book. Where in Dark Disciple we're told that Ventress, after her master died, she ended up killing some warlords on Rat-Attack and then ended up ruling in their place. Here, this book ends up telling us specifically which, namely 2 warlords called Zol Kramer and Ring Klee, after which Ventress must have ruled for a bit, but there was a 3rd warlord who escaped called Osika Kursk, and he ended up using himself as bait to capture Ventress, and then he forced her with a shock collar to fight in the arena on Rat-Attack. That's where Dooku ends up finding her. He kills Osika Kursk, and then he takes Ventress back to his castle on Serrano, which is where we get the line,
I can sense the darkness within you. I will teach you the ways of the dark side, but you must prove yourself first.
So in my last video, I was wrong in thinking that the Season 3 flashback came after the fight on Yavin, when actually it all takes place before Attack of the Clones. The new context from the book now kind of shows us that Ventress being on Rat-Attack in the 2003 Clone Wars is her final test before she gets to meet Darth Sidious. You see, in Dooku Jedi Lost, there is a few references to the Hooded Man. Ventress's response to hearing about the Hooded Man was, Hooded Man? What is she talking about? So clearly, during Dooku Jedi Lost, Ventress has no idea about Darth Sidious and who he is. But she does know about the Sith. She knows that Dooku has a belief in the Sith. Dooku's connection to the Sith isn't something that comes up at all in his backstory that Ventress learns about throughout the book. So essentially, when we get to the arena fight on Rat-Attack, we can reinterpret the following lines.
The dark side is strong in me, for I am Sith. You are a foolish old man who knows nothing of the dark side.
Indeed.
To mean, look, I've studied all your history. There's nothing in there about the Sith. I think you're just a foolish old man that knows nothing about the dark side. In other words, Ventress is just trying to goad Dooku into getting a meeting with the Hooded Man, which ends up happening anyway because then she meets the Hooded Man for the first time.
Have you been watching, Master?
I have indeed, Lord Tyrannus. The child's skill with a lightsaber are most impressive. You have found a promising disciple, my apprentice. She shall serve us well.
I am honored.
Let me introduce my master, the true Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious.
One other small detail around that. Despite the front cover of the book, Ventress's lightsaber colour is never mentioned throughout the book, and in fact, Dooku's sister mistakes Ventress for a Jedi. Only Dooku's lightsaber colour is mentioned. Regarding Ventress having 2 green lightsabers in the Season 3 flashback, and are having a green and a blue one in the 2003 Clone Wars, we can assume that possibly during her training with Dooku, before her final test going back to the arena on Rat-Attack, one or both of her lightsabers ended up getting destroyed. And in the book Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, Aliens Volume 1, a fact which is also confirmed within Dark Disciple, is that Dooku collected lightsabers and lightsaber crystals from all the Jedi that fell during the Clone Wars. For all we know, the blue lightsaber could even be the lightsaber of the fallen Jedi Jack Zinn, who died due to Dooku just before the outbreak of the Clone Wars. But for all intents and purposes, the timeline of all these events is Dooku finds Ventress on Rat-Attack, brings her back, and then she has her initial mission to prove herself, and she proves herself with the mission with Jenza in Dooku Jedi Lost. Then Attack of the Clones happens, the Clone Wars begins, and then she has her final test before meeting Sidious, where she returns to Rat-Attack and wrecks everything in the arena. Something I thought that was worth revisiting was the non-Separatist Navy colours used during the 2003 Clone Wars. Point number 1 is that even in Revenge of the Sith, we see some of the brown Trade Federation vehicles aboard the Invisible Hand, so straight away that lines up with what we see. And the reason for this is touched on by Dave Filoni in a Clone Wars Season 4 behind-the-scenes video.
So the barbell ship, what we call the barbell ship, do you know why we designed this ship? George wanted to separate the Trade Federation vessels from the Separatist period. Because something that's really come to light in the Clone Wars series is that George sees it as Separatists, Republic, and then in the middle is big business, the corporations. And he felt that the donut ships represented too much the Trade Federation from Phantom Menace.
I see, like the aristocracy or something? Like something that...
Well, just as that they're trade.
Yeah,
and that they sit neutrally in the war, shipping arms to both sides. Now, you can bring up to him, well, but in Revenge of the Sith, you see these painted up as battleships in the big battle. But at that point, they had kind of thrown all in with the Separatists or the Trade Federation maybe did. That all needs to come to light with Nuke, Gunray, Wat Tambor, San Hill, Pas Argente, all those guys, and explaining who the Separatist Council is that you see in the films versus the Separatist Senate versus the Trade Federation and the guilds. Obi-Wan Kenobi witnessed a business deal going on. And in the business deal, he saw those corporate leaders telling Dooku they're going to sell him arms and sell him droids to build an army. That doesn't mean that those corporations don't also have deals with the Republic to give them arms. But it got blanketed in all the media that it was very black and white.
So, what we learn is that while all these corporations were neutral, by the time of Revenge of the Sith, they had pretty much thrown all in with the Separatists, or at least the Trade Federation had, and probably the Techno Union. Hence the usage of the brown MTTs and the landing craft and the vulture droids during the Battle of Coruscant. One of the things I've been asked a few times is, if Mace Windu gives Grievous his cough just before Revenge of the Sith, then how come Grievous is seen coughing all throughout the Clone Wars? Now, I'm still uncertain about the last one, but if you remember in the previous video, we established that Grievous has had at least 3 versions to his body. And we don't see him coughing in his Mark 1, we see him coughing in Mark 2, and then we don't see him coughing in Mark 3, unless we count that one instance in the reels. But even if he does cough there, it's not much of an issue, because if we look at his coughs in Revenge of the Sith, we can see there's way more wheezing, it's way more intense. 30 seconds of coughing over 6 seasons versus 30 seconds of coughing over a few days. So even if we can't blame Mace Windu for the existence of the cough, we can certainly blame him for the severity of it. Next, I'd like to look at how specifically Season 7's timeline interacts with Clone Wars Legacy and Chapter 25. On the official chronological order guide on StarWars.com, we used to see that the Clone Wars Legacy material was included, and it showed that after Season 6 we had the Crystal Crisis reel, we had the Bad Batch reels, then the first half of Dark Disciple, then Son of Dathomir, and the second half of Dark Disciple. But when Season 7 came along, some of this stuff was shifted around. See, chronologically, according to StarWars.com, the Trace and Rafa arc, which is the second arc they aired, was actually chronologically the first arc in the season. And within that we saw a cameo from Darth Maul, who had clearly been released from his prison on Stygian Prime by that point, placing the events of that arc after the Son of Dathomir comic from the old listing. But originally the Bad Batch arc took place before Son of Dathomir, but now, because it takes place after the Trace and Rafa arc, and the Trace and Rafa arc takes place after Son of Dathomir, we know that the Bad Batch arc has been moved ahead in the timeline. And this is also because of that one scene that they added in with Anakin talking to Padme, where he mentioned that they didn't think the Outer Rim sieges would last this long. And if you don't know, the Outer Rim sieges were the final set of battles in the Clone Wars, and it's the reason why Anakin was away from Coruscant for so long, and the reason why he didn't know that Padme was pregnant. In fact, we probably see Anakin leaving for the sieges during the Trace and Rafa arc. But in the second half of the Dark Disciple novel, in Chapter 30, Anakin spends time with Padme at the apartments, and it's implied at the end of the book that he takes Voss, along with Obi-Wan, back to Coruscant. So we know that all of the Clone Wars Legacy content takes place before Season 7, and that the Bad Batch arc's just simply been moved ahead in the timeline. How long was Anakin away from Padme and Coruscant for? Well, in canon, we're not entirely sure. But if we take Legends as a guideline, meaning that all this could be thrown out of the water later, according to the Revenge of the Sith novelization, Anakin had been away on the Outer Rim sieges for almost 5 months, and according to the visual dictionary, he'd been away for almost 5 months. The Battle of Coruscant, aka the start of Revenge of the Sith, occurred on the 20th day of the 5th month, meaning that 4 complete months had occurred, and that they were 20 days into the 5th month. And the war had begun in the year 22 before the Battle of Yavin, on the 21st day of the 5th month. So, Anakin's not having seen Padme for almost 5 months lines up with the Battle of Coruscant taking place almost 5 months into year 19 before the Battle of Yavin. That being 4 complete months and 20 days, nearly a whole month, into that year. Because Anakin doesn't know Padme's pregnant when he comes back to Coruscant, how pregnant can she be when he leaves for the Outer Rim sieges? Pregnancy bumps end up showing at about 12 weeks on, so Anakin must have left the sieges before week 12, that being about 2.7 months, for him not to know that she's pregnant. If she's any more pregnant than this when he leaves, then he would know that she's pregnant. Also, the twins are born prematurely in the movie. Taking into account the advanced medical technology in the Star Wars universe, it still takes time for human lungs to grow and develop. And by about week 30 in the pregnancy, the lungs produce this substance called surfactant, That stops the alveoli from collapsing. So if we take into account the advanced medical technology in the Star Wars universe, the twins have no breathing apparatus on them when they're born, and Luke's sent to a backwater planet as well, where there's no advanced medical technology there whatsoever outside of the Republic. This would mean that according to that, they'd be about 7 months old, and then this is confirmed with the almost 5 months that Anakin's away for the sieges, and the just over 2 months that Padme can be pregnant for Anakin not to know that she's pregnant. So that gives us 7 months. This is important because we see the night that the twins are supposed to be conceived on during the montage in the 2003 Clone Wars. The shot when Anakin appears to Padme with his scar, at the end of that montage, there's that one shot where there's a bedroom with a light switched on and then it flicks off. The obvious implication there. But then Dark Disciple comes in and that muddies the waters a little bit. You see, at the start of the book, we're told that for years the Clone Wars have been going off. So at least 2. But then during the first chapter of the book, Plo Koon says for almost 3 standard years the wars have been going on. Why this is a problem I'll get into. But first we need to establish over how long the events of the book take place. The events of the book can be broken down into a few major events. There is the time that Quinlan Vos is a bounty hunter with Ventress. There's the time Vos spends with Dooku, and then where he serves as Dooku's new right-hand Admiral Enigma. Then there's the time where he's recovering with the Jedi. Then there's the time where some of his responsibilities are being given back to him, ending with him attempting to assassinate Dooku again. And then there is just the aftermath of all that, where he spends a time with Yoda. Now, the book tells us that he spends weeks with Ventress as a bounty hunter, and then you add a little bit on for that, where he has a little bit of dark side training. We don't know how long Vos was in prison with Dooku. From his point of view, he had no awareness of time whatsoever. But after Ventress tries to rescue him and fails, we know that she ends up drinking herself into a hole for days, weeks, and the weeks transition into months. We also know the whole time that Vos was with Dooku is summarised as having been spoken of as months in the tender loving care of Count Dooku. We know he spends a month recovering in the Jedi Temple. After recovering for a month with the Jedi, he spends weeks before trying to go and assassinate Dooku again. And then after that whole ordeal, it's spoken of as that it had been a long, excruciating few months, summarising the entire time up to that point. After which it said that he spent a time with Yoda, which that's quite vague, but that could mean anything. So, on a timeline where the months are made up of 30 days based on the Batu calendar, and where the weeks are made up of 6 days, also based on the canon Batu calendar, which if that's based on Galaxy's Edge, you'd think that'd be quite universal for the whole Star Wars galaxy. So, he spends at least weeks with Ventress, so at least 2 weeks. There's the time Vos spends in prison, which is at least days, which Vos getting captured is the halfway point of the book, and chapter 22 begins after that. And also the time during which Vos is imprisoned, that's when Son of Dathomir is supposed to take place. That would leave us with 2 weeks until the end of the month, and then with it swapping over into another month, Ventress could have spoken of herself as been drinking herself for days, weeks, and now months, because it had overlapped into 2 months. And with Vos serving as Admiral Enigma, then when he gets brought back to the temple, he recovers for a month. And then there's the time where he's on missions until his other attempt to assassinate Dooku again. And that's spoken of as at least weeks, so at least 2 weeks. Therefore, the excruciating few months is at least 3.5 months by this reckoning. Vos recovers with Yoda for a time after this ordeal. So, while it might not take as much time as the first recovery he had, it still take a time, so probably the remainder of that month. And again, we know that Son of Dathomir takes place in between chapters 21 and 22 in that small time jump. So, at least the book takes place over about 4 months period. And Anakin is with Padme on Coruscant at the start of the 3rd month in chapter 30. So here's where we get the issue now with the for almost 3 standard years line by Plo Koon, because I see that there's 2 ways to interpret this line. If we take it at face value as being almost 3 years, that means that they are more than 2.5 years into it, and rounding up towards 3 years. The Battle of Geonosis began towards the end of the 5th month, meaning that the majority of it took place in the final 7 months of that year. 1 full year in 21 BBY, 1 full year in 20 BBY, and then those almost 5 months in 19 BBY. Again, at least according to Legends. So if we accept that line, which is said in passing, by the way, by Plo Koon, if we take the almost 3 years as a 2.5 year minimum, that means that the war has been raging for 2 full years and 6 months. We place the start of the book in the 12th month of year 20 BBY. Then we've still got the 4 months where the Dark Disciple novel occurs, which only leaves us with 2 months for Anakin to leave on the sieges, which is not enough time for almost 5 months, and the twins would be about 4 months since conception at the time of their birth, which at that stage they probably shouldn't be giving them to Owen and Bail Organa. Now, the other way I've found to interpret this information is Plo Koon calls them 3 standard years. Now, the standard year ran from the 1st month to the 12th month of the year, meaning that he may have considered the first standard year as having been the remaining 7 months of the year 22 BBY, because the war had occurred throughout that standard year. Then he would have considered 21 BBY as the second standard year, and then on the first day in the 6th month of the year 20 BBY, he could round up from that number to the nearest whole and say that almost 3 standard years this war has been raging throughout, which means at the absolute earliest the Dark Disciple novel could take place from day 1 of the 6th month in the year 20 before the Battle of Yavin. But this could wiggle forward a little bit as well. But then we've got 4 months for the Dark Disciple novel to occur, and then as a result of that, Anakin gets his scar removed, and that montage in chapter 22 occurs, the end of which occurs at about 2 months before the start of the year 19 BBY, which then leaves you with all the room for Anakin to be away for almost 5 months. So essentially, if you want to know, you watch season 6, you go through all the Clone Wars legacy content, then you watch the montage up until Anakin gets his scar, and then season 7 occurs from then onwards. But again, in canon, the Outer Rim sieges could have lasted longer than 5 months, and so all this reasoning could just go straight out the window. I mean, for all we know, the Battle of Coruscant could have occurred 4 months later than it did in Legends. So, the main thing you've come for. Does the start of the Siege of Mandalore erase the 2003 Clone Wars? They kind of sidestep around each other. You see, at the very start of it, we see Commander Cody is on Yerbana leading Republic forces against the Separatists. It's not the Jedi Generals that's leading the attack. The episode gallery on StarWars.com confirms that Cody was the one leading the assault on the planet. So, where were Anakin and Obi-Wan during all this? Well, in the 03 Clone Wars, we know where they were. When they pulled up to Nelvaan in space, they arrived with 11 Republic cruisers, which made up the Third Army. It made up all of Obi-Wan's 212th and all of Anakin's 501st Legion. So while Anakin was down on the planet, just him and Obi-Wan, by the way, you've got 11 cruisers in space and him and Obi-Wan down on the planet. While Anakin was having his trial of the spirit, something could have flared up on Yerbana, and then Obi-Wan may have been like, okay, Cody, you can go and deal with that, and we'll wrap things up here. And thanks to this arc, we also know that commanders can lead attacks because of what Anakin says when he promotes Rex to commander.
I'll divide the 501st, make a new division under Ahsoka's command.
Unfortunately, Ahsoka is no longer a part of the Grand Army of the Republic.
We'll promote Rex to commander and have him lead the new division.
So I'd imagine once Anakin and Obi-Wan are finished on Nelvaan, they go up into space to the one Republic cruiser that's been left behind. Anakin gets a quick armory attachment. It's like, okay, let's go and help out Cody on Yerbana. Anakin only really gets time to just attach a new arm, but he doesn't really get to fine-tune it or anything. And then he's at Yerbana and he has to go down and help the boys. You can see that Rex and all the 501st have got jetpack gear on, so they must have been part of an aerial battle of some sort. We know that Anakin's an excellent pilot, so that would have been wrapped up pretty quick for him. You can just tell him, right, go and fly under the bridge, I'm going to go and join Obi-Wan now. And probably all in the time it took Obi-Wan to land his ship as well. So why weren't Anakin and Obi-Wan there at the start of the arc? It's because they'd just been on Nelvaan on their own. Next, thanks to the 03 Clone Wars, we know that when Shak Ti was sent to protect the Chancellor, her communications were jammed.
Trooper, call for support!
We're being jammed. We have no communication. We're on our own.
Later on, Mace and Yoda figure out what the true objective of the attack was.
Strange is the enemy strategy.
A massive invasion, but no attempt to take the temple or city.
Unless an elaborate distraction?
To hide their primary objective. Palpatine.
General Windu.
Pilot, turn this ship around.
Yes, sir.
Mace Windu goes to look for Shaak-Ti, but if he tried to contact her on his comm wrist, he wouldn't be able to get through, so he probably then contacted Yoda and says, I can't get in contact with her, but I'm going to keep searching for her and track her down. Yoda would eventually then contact Obi-Wan and just tell him that we need you two back on Coruscant immediately because we've lost contact with the Chancellor and Grievous has attacked the capital, and that Mace Windu has lost contact with Shaak-Ti.
No, it's Coruscant. Grievous has attacked the capital.
What about the Chancellor?
Shaak-Ti has been sent to protect him, but Master Windu has lost contact with her. Not to worry. Our fleet can be there within the hour.
But then later on in the 03 Clone Wars, when Mace Windu contacts them, he doesn't give them the same message. He tells them that
Kenobi, Skywalker, Coruscant is under siege, and General Grievous has abducted the Supreme Chancellor. You must return immediately. You must rescue Palpatine.
Grievous. Battle stations. All crews to their fighters. Prepare to jump into hyperspace. Move!
And while this might be the first time that Mace Windu's contacted them regarding it, to Anakin and Obi-Wan from their point of view, it's an update on the situation. And while before it might have been a ground assault they were doing to try and get to the Chancellor, now it's going to be a space assault. So Anakin's like, oh, all crews get to your fighters. Another point in this scene, by the way, notice how Anakin and Obi-Wan are dressed. They're both in the exact same outfits that they were in previously when they were both speaking to Ahsoka. And we see in this scene with Mace Windu, Obi-Wan's got his hooded robes on and Anakin's not got his hooded robes on. Another point, they arrive at Nelvaan with 11 cruisers. That's the 501st and the 212th. In Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan leaves for Utapau, we see that he's leaving with 5 cruisers. This means that among the Third Army, the 501st takes up 6 cruisers and Obi-Wan's takes up 5. So if Anakin were to split the 501st in half, then we would expect to see Ahsoka arriving at Mandalore with how many cruisers? 3. What's interesting about this is that you don't need to change the order of any of the scenes in the 03 Clone Wars either, or any of the scenes in the start of the Siege of Mandalore arc. They're just kind of cross-cut with each other. So if you go through it in order, it kind of goes as follows. You watch all the chapters 22, 23, 24 normally. All that is completely unaffected. So you get the majority of the Nelvaan adventure. You get the Battle of Coruscant. We get Shaak-Ti having a transmission jammed. You see Mace Windu going off to look for Shaak-Ti. And then you get to the Nelvaan village celebrations afterwards. That's when the first cut happens. Anakin's freed the people and he speaks to Obi-Wan. That's when it would cut to the Yerbana battle with Cody. The only thing really missing here would be if we duplicated the shot of them overlooking the village and had James Arnold Taylor dub over a line saying something along the lines of, well, we'd better get your arm reattached and make tracks. While you were busy here, I sent Cody and the boys on an errand. Something like that. Just to establish that the fleet's been sent off elsewhere, and then it links you straight up to the events on Yerbana. Anakin fixes his arm, but he don't really get a chance to fine-tune it. So then he goes and he field tests it on Yerbana. All that events happen. Anakin and Obi-Wan get called back to the ship, and that's when they meet with Ahsoka, or when they see Ahsoka, and they talk to her via hologram. Then you cut back to where Shaak-Ti is fighting the Magna Guards, and where Raw and Korb and that other guy take the Chancellor into the bunker, and they fight Grievous. Then he gets to the point when Shaak-Ti comes to fight Grievous, and then at that point when he holds her up and he's about to electrocute her, that's when you cut away, because that would take time for him to get her all wrapped up in cables, hung up, and then get the Chancellor out and up into the ship. So at that point you cut back to Ahsoka and Bo-Katan landing on the ship, and them having that conversation with Obi-Wan and Anakin. And then there's the long hallway sequence, and Obi-Wan comes in and he tells Anakin that, oh, they've lost contact with Shaak-Ti, who's been sent to protect the Chancellor, and all that stuff. When Ahsoka approaches the Republic gunship, which will take her to a Republic cruiser, that's when you would cut back to Grievous boarding the ship with Palpatine and then Mace Windu coming and crushing his chest. Now we have to think, splitting up the 501st Legion in half, considering that they're already kind of mixed among the 212th across these 11 cruisers, wouldn't be a quick task. It'd take a little bit of organisation, probably 5, maybe 10 minutes for Anakin to split the 501st in half properly. But during that interval, he goes back to his workbench where he fixed his arm originally, because he knows now, I'm going to have to go and rescue the Chancellor. This is the most important mission of my life. I've got to be on my A game. So he just fine-tunes his arm after the field test on Yerbana, where he left his Nelvaan wrappings earlier when he got off the ship and headed to the med lab originally. And that's when R2 asks him, did it hurt when your arm came off? And so, because that's on his mind, Obi-Wan can sense that and he comes up to him and asks him about it. Then Mace Windu contacts them from Mace Windu's perspective, probably the first time, but from Anakin and Obi-Wan's perspective, it's an update. And then they go off on the adventure to save the Chancellor, and that's when Ahsoka goes off and approaches Sundari. So yeah, it works. It completely works. I'll put a how-to watch on the screen, and that's that really. Thank you for sitting through 30 minutes of me jabbering on. But that's it. That's everything. Yep, that's it. That's everything. No. It's an artist error. He doesn't. I doubt Anakin went from this scene and then went and got a shower to remove some face paint. It's just an artist error. Just leave me alone. I'm done. I'm finished.